You're watching The Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates.
Yeah. My heart is purple and gold. I'm a pirate down to my soul, and I don't back down, not at all. Find out when the cannons explode. From the sidelines down to the post. Put it down like not even close. All out to the last whistle blow. From the flag with the soul and crossbones. Everybody stand up, get your hands up. Let a team know that we got their back.
How about those friggin' Pirates?
Welcome in to a very special edition of the Sports Objective. Why? Because we have a very special guest. We'll have first of all, the director of morale, Bubba Rosenbaum. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Dave. Just having a little fun with some of the new features of StreamYard, and seeing if you guys, as well as some of our viewers and listeners, got that reference going back nearly a decade now, when Caleb Presley, at the University of North Carolina, was the director of morale for the Tar Heels.
Well, I could say something. I'm not going to take a cheap shot just yet. Hey, Matt Semenza, what's up, buddy?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Hope everybody's doing well. Feels like a long time since we've done a show, but I'm looking forward to catching up with David, and certainly no shortage of topics to talk about.
No, when you talk to DG, he's like, there are people like Bubba and Matt. You go, oh, I know a lot about a topic, and then you meet the three guys, and you're like, okay, I need to stay up 24 hours a day to try to keep up with these guys. But with us right now, David Glenn, of course, chapelboro.com, professor at UNC Wilmington, and all a great dad, husband with a lovely and talented Maria. How are you, sir? Great to have you back.
I'm doing great, guys. It's always fun to be with you. I fondly remember all of my previous visits, and y'all know my son was and is a Pirate, so I continue to follow ECU athletics and, of course, state of North Carolina athletics. So it's great to be with you again.
So and in my background there, as you see that I have Clark Leclerc only a week away from the first pitch. I have a question for you because the guys, I think, at Baseball America. So we have all these polls, right? And polls don't mean anything. I know that it's great for us to talk about the media, the fans, and all that. But for some reason, all the polls, including coaches poll, the baseball writers poll, the D1 baseball poll, they've got us like 11th, 12th, 13th, right? And our good friends in Durham, you know how much I love Durham, my hometown, but my friends at Baseball America give us no love at like 24. I'm like, how is it that all these other publications that everybody has us pretty much the same? And then I'm not trying to throw shade at them or hot takes. I'm just wondering, every year they always put us way low. I kind of like that because that means we're going to overachieve if we can finish like in the top 10 or 15. And I think we do better than when the expectations are in the top 15. But I didn't know if you have any some insight on that of why we get picked every year so low.
I don't know the answer to that. I do know that they're always bragging about college baseball in the state of North Carolina, where they are based and have been based for a long time. So I am not sure about their view of the Pirates specifically this season or otherwise, but it is fun to just glance. You're right, polls aren't always right, but people know where the players are and where the coaches are. And the fact that NC State's probably going to be good again, and ECU is going to be good again, and Carolina's going to be good again, and others across the state are going to be good again. Even UNC Wilmington is very proud of its baseball program.
Okay.
Campbell is really proud of its baseball program, and there are many other examples. So it's fun going into any season, just knowing that one or more of the teams that you follow has a chance to be special, whether that's a conference championship or a run to the College World Series or whatever. Everything is more fun when you have competitive teams that have a chance to do great things. And I think that's the case for a lot of college basketball teams in our state as we speak, but certainly college baseball teams as well.
Yeah, so many times, Dave, there's such a large discrepancy in those college baseball polls. I mean, you have 5 or 6 polls, so it's not surprising. And my guess for that discrepancy between 11th and 24th between D1 baseball and Baseball America, as far as the Pirates are concerned, would be the question around shortstop. We know that we have some very capable pieces there, but they're largely unproven. So that would be my guess.
Maybe, but I still, if you know anything about Cliff Godwin, when you have an ace like Jeff Palumbo as his associate head coach, the director of recruiting, I mean, that's almost unfair to other teams because he's that good. He could be a head coach a lot of places. And he even said, immediate DG, the reason why he stays is because it's kind of like a Bill Guthridge. You know, he could have gone anywhere, but he loved Dean Smith. Kind of like the same way with Palumbo, with Cliff Godwin. He loves what they're doing here. And the fact that they haven't made Omaha in 30-some tries, it's one of those stats like you, David, with Clemson never beat North Carolina in Chapel Hill. It's one of those I'm sick and tired of talking about. Clemson, please beat North Carolina in Chapel Hill so we don't talk about it. The same thing. I'm really tired of talking about over 30 appearances in the NCAA regionals and no Omaha appearance. I'm ready to get that monkey off our back. 33 tries. Thank you, Chuck.
I get it, man. You know, heck, you know, my Philadelphia Eagles are playing in the Super Bowl this weekend, and I remember my uncles and my dad and my grandfather talking about how the Eagles were usually so bad. And once they called the NFL championship the Super Bowl, the Eagles had never won the Super Bowl. So there it was 50 plus years after the creation of this monster that most of America watches called the Super Bowl. And my favorite childhood football team had never won it all. And now I was there 5 years ago when they did win it all. And I do think there is something to the idea that it tastes even better. It feels even sweeter when it takes a while to kick the door down. I'm not saying it's not fun to always be the king of the hill. I mean, I'm sure that's fun too. But when ECU kicks down that door, it is going to be one hell of a party. I know that.
No doubt. And we'll talk about that. Let's talk about the Super Bowl. Nice transition, but that's what you do for a living, DG. A lot of storylines. I missed the DG show. So the fact that you have 57 years, you finally have two starting quarterbacks that are African-American, that are of color. You have the Kelsey brothers playing, which is the first time ever, guys. Can you imagine that, having a sibling? You're playing against your brother is in the Super Bowl and you're in the Super Bowl. We had it with Harbaugh with two coaches in 2013 with the Ravens and the 49ers, but never two players. There's just so many things. Third time ever in Arizona. There's so many like storylines. How about the one that I finally heard yesterday was of Andy Reid playing against the Eagles. I mean, that guy gave his life to the Eagles, and he gets to the Super Bowl in 2004, but he finally now has a shot. He could beat the Eagles, and I guess that would be bittersweet for him.
Well, you know, growing up in Philadelphia, I can vouch for the fact that Philly fans tend to be very nasty. You know, some of those people are my relatives and friends, and most of the time they cheer in the right way, and occasionally they go over the top and get a little too nasty. But it is true that very few former Philadelphia coaches or former Philadelphia athletes are still loved by that fan base. And actually, Andy Reid is on that short list. Now, he never brought the Super Bowl to the Eagles, but he did lead them to one of the greatest stretches in the history of the franchise. So he's one of the rare guys that even after he wears the Eagles colors, the Eagles fans basically like him and support him. Now, that's not going to be the case Sunday, obviously, because he's the opposition. But it is one more of those great angles that you mentioned, Dave. And the one about the Kelceys, keep in mind, it's not just brothers. I mean, it's a cool story just that they're brothers on opposite teams, obviously. But Travis Kelce of the Chiefs is one of the best tight ends in the NFL in recent years. And Jason Kelce of the Eagles is just a freak of an offensive lineman. Like the Eagles use it sounds boring, right? Your offensive center. How interesting could it possibly be? He is such a good athlete at offensive center that they almost use him like a fullback, and they ask him to quickly get to a certain linebacker that you would never ask a typical center or guard to go after. But the Eagles design plays with the idea that this uber athletic Pro Bowl center, Jason Kelce, can do what most centers can't do. So it's brother versus brother, but it's like star brother against star brother at two different positions. And that's just one more reason. Two of the best offenses in the NFL is one more theme. And, you know, whether you're looking forward to the commercials or, you know, grandma's bean dip or some other food item that's always at a Super Bowl party, most fans like offense, and we are going to get to see two of the more interesting and prolific offenses in the NFL.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Bubba, do you want to put up some of the comments
Yeah.
so we don't get behind?
Yeah, nice segue there. Or kind of lead into talking about the offense. Jalen Hurts, and then obviously Patrick Mahomes on the quarterback matchup this year. But Chuck says, diving into the Eagles' past, what are your memories of Ron Jaworski?
Jaws.
Yeah, it's funny, since it is Super Bowl week, my first real rich memory of the Super Bowl is when Ron Jaworski took the Eagles there. I was probably about 12 years old, and former UNC football coach John Bunting was a member of that Eagles team. That it was really cool meeting him and interviewing him later in my career. I never would have thought as a 12-year-old watching Ron Jaworski play quarterback or John Bunting play linebacker or some of these other guys that I would later meet in my career as a sports broadcaster. That was crazy to me. But that year, the Eagles did lose to the Raiders. It was pretty convincing. I probably cried as a 12-year-old, because the Eagles had been bad for most of the 70s, really bad. And then they hired a guy named Dick Vermeil,
Yes,
and it
sir.
was one of those experiments. Could a really high energy college coach, Vermeil was at UCLA, would he translate to the NFL? And of course, that question's never really gone away, but that was one of the earlier experiments along those lines. And sure enough, Vermeil, with Jaworski, a running back named Wilbert Montgomery, a tall wide receiver named Harold Carmichael, a pretty good defense. They turned that franchise around in the late 70s, and then there they were in the Super Bowl in 1980. If I remember correctly, they got whooped by the Raiders in that Super Bowl. But they changed the trajectory of the Eagles franchise and gave some really downtrodden fans, who were famous for throwing snowballs at Santa Claus and, cheering injuries to opposing players and other horrible things. It actually gave them something to cheer about for a change. So that was a fun time to be an Eagles fan, even though they didn't win it all.
I remember that Super Bowl was the second Super Bowl I remember. I remember the Rams and the Steelers was my first in '79 with Mean Joe Green, my favorite commercial of all time. But anyway, that Jim Plunkett was a credible quarterback. Back then it just seems like I'm an old guy, but the quarterback play, DG, back then, every team had a great quarterback, even if they were a bad team. It just seems like that was my take.
I remember Plunkett picking apart the Eagles. I think I remember a fullback named Kenny King. I mean, when does a fullback ever end up being one of the stars of a Super Bowl? I'm sure it's happened more than once, but I'm pretty sure my memory is solid on this one. Like a little rinky-dink screen pass to Kenny King in the flat somehow goes for 80 yards, and it was the back-breaking play for an Eagles team that was pretty good defensively, but just got picked apart by Jim Plunkett that day.
David, when I think of the Eagles back in the day, I think of Ron Jaworski. I mean, he became an amazing analyst for ESPN. I always enjoy Jaws, but my lasting memory of him as a player, and it sounds terrible, but was watching Lawrence Taylor come off the edge and just deliver. I mean, some of the most iconic sacks, when you watch NFL films, or LT coming off the edge, and it seemed like the Eagles had no answers for him back in the early 80s, and Jaws, I think, took the brunt of that.
I think you're right, Matt. And one thing I remember about the Eagles is that they perpetually had offensive line problems. And you can have a talented quarterback and you can have other really good players or a good defense or whatever. If you can't block, you can hide it for a while, but eventually it comes back to haunt you. And I just remember years where if you made a list of the Eagles' strengths and weaknesses, number one on the weaknesses was often the offensive line. And that did make for some long days for Ron Jaworski. There's no doubt about it. And even Randall Cunningham after him. Everybody remembers he was a great athlete. Part of the reason he needed to be a great athlete is because he was running for his life half the time.
Yeah, those were some of my earliest memories of the Eagles. Buddy Ryan, Reggie White, and then Randall Cunningham that you just referenced.
Yeah, those were fun teams too. I mean, Buddy Ryan was a piece of work just as a personality and obviously a great architect of defenses, but he was always taunting the Cowboys and he would get in trouble for, stories about how he'd put a bounty on opposing players' heads just to get his defensive players fired up, which of course was against the NCAA or the NFL rules at the time, and I would think still is against the rules. And everybody knew Buddy did it. I mean, everybody denied it, but it was exactly Buddy's personality. That's exactly the way he did things. He was unapologetic. He was in your face. He was aggressive. That's how his defense played, but that's also what his personality was like. So again, it's another example where the Eagles did not ultimately break through and win it all. But after so many years of 4 wins or 2 wins, or there were times the Eagles were the laughing stock of the NFL when I was a really little kid in the early 70s. Those were 2 of the sort of peak moments where the Eagles didn't win it all, but they were playoff caliber teams for a few years in a row. And everybody, I mean, only one team holds the trophy at the end. So if you're a playoff caliber team, it beats the heck out of being everybody's doormat.
Justin Butts and Richard Alsbrook chiming in on Facebook on one of the reasons that I'm pulling for the Eagles. Perhaps even the primary reason is Linval Joseph, who played under Skip Holtz and then forewent his final year of eligibility in 2010 under Ruffin McNeil. And Linval, of course, has been with several teams, and he signed with the Eagles back in mid-November. I think about a $750,000 deal, and would love to see Linval get a Super Bowl ring.
I'm glad you mentioned that because it's easy to forget the only thing that could have derailed this Eagles season. And remember, with Jalen Hurts, they've only lost 1 game. The other 2 games they lost this season, Hurts was hurt. It's easy to forget because their numbers have been so dominant. There was a time early this season you saw them lose to Washington, but it wasn't just that 1 game. There were 3 or 4 weeks in a row where teams were just running up the middle on the Eagles. And the Eagles were having a hard time getting off the field defensively. And it's hard to pick up quality players in the middle of the season or just find the solution among your backups or whatever. But it was part Linval Joseph, proud ECU grad. It was part they acquired Ndamukong Suh, relatively far into the regular season. And what had been just a gaping hole in their defense. They were rushing the passer well from their ends. They were getting great play from their secondary. But teams were just keeping Jalen Hurts off the field by running up the middle and moving the chains and eating up the clock. So credit to those guys for changing the Eagles defense midstream. What was a massive problem found a solution eventually. And now the Eagles are a pretty darn well-rounded defense. And I think it's going to take a Houdini act by Patrick Mahomes. The only way the Chiefs can beat the Eagles, to me, and of course it's possible, is if Mahomes, maybe his ankle is healthier than they have said, and he just kind of eludes the rush. The Eagles are not great against quarterbacks that scramble and extend plays. That's the one thing that's hurt them. So obviously Mahomes at his best is capable of that. So it'll be interesting to see how agile he is with that ankle, because I don't see, other than those scramble plays, I just don't see a lot of weak areas for the Chiefs to attack, even though their offense is obviously dynamic.
Let's bring in now Kyle from LaGrange Barber. And what's up, my friend?
I was starting to wonder if I was invisible. Good Lord. I wanted to say
the comments.
My earliest and favorite memories of the Eagles would probably be Hotel California, Desperado, Take It Easy. Favorite Eagle would be Don Henley. Are we allowed to say Super Bowl, or do we have to say big game?
Super Bowl. No, we have to say Super Bowl.
Okay.
As long as we're not selling anything with Super Bowl as part of the title, we're off the hook.
It just cracks me up. That's one of the things that cracks me up when you always hear, come to whatever sports bar for the big game, blah, 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 blah. Is it just, I get it, but they have to do it, but it's just, come on, man.
It's very lame. And I know an attorney that may be able to help us out that's on the show right now. And there's only
it's funny. I wonder if y'all had promoted this publicly as like the Super Bowl edition of the Sports Objective.
Yeah.
Like theoretically, I think they might have been able to come after you for that. Because again, we can say it as often as we want because this is just editorial commenting. We're just all sharing our thoughts. If you used it as a sales pitch
Okay.
This is the Super Bowl edition. When you're using it for commercial purposes, that's when they can come after you.
Well, David, we just blame it all on Bubba. So, it doesn't fall back on us.
Director of morale.
I volunteer to do pro bono work, which means free, in case you didn't know.
Yes.
Free legal advice if they come after you guys.
Okay. Sounds very good. Kyle, what is your favorite memory of the Super Bowl?
I'm not a big NFL guy. So I want to say something funny like Janet Jackson's nip slip, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably, honestly, favorite Super Bowl memories would be growing up. Actually, it's gonna be more personal. It would be growing up, going to my Uncle Wade's Super Bowl parties, just being a kid there, watching all the adults gamble and drink, and he would always cook a pig, have a pig picking, and eating barbecue, and just being in that atmosphere was always fun as a kid. Even though as a kid you really don't care about the game, just being in that atmosphere, being around everybody having fun, would probably be my biggest Super Bowl memories.
Well, what's happened is since I've become an adult, my team doesn't go to the Super Bowl. When I was a kid, I had 4 in a decade. So that's what's hard for me is that I don't want to grow up. I don't want to be an adult because when I was a kid, we were winning.
Yeah, I remember the Super Bowl, and shows you my lack of NFL knowledge, but the Skins Super Bowl, I remember the quarterback was Ripken.
Yeah.
91.
Yeah, that one I remember.
Bowl, but yeah, January of 92, and that's the last time. There's a lot of years, lean years. So hopefully Daniel Snyder will sell the team. He and his wife, please sell the team. Please sell the team.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's a guy that DG hangs out with, Jeff Bezos from Amazon, I understand. So he's the guy that's rumored to buy the team.
He's got a lot of money.
Yeah, DG's high roller with those guys. So maybe.
Yeah, right.
And or how about Tom Dundon? You know him?
I do know Tom Dundon personally, but I can't say that there's a long list of billionaires that I hang around with. That's a pretty darn short list.
There's one more billionaire than I know.
For the record, those guys have more money that they've forgotten in their couch cushions, than I would comprehend. Trust me.
Who do you think the worst? Just since we're talking NFL, just for the hell of it, who do you think the worst owner in the league is? DG.
I think it's got to be Daniel Snyder.
Thank you. Yes.
I mean, he's bad for public relations. He's been shown to just be dishonest. He's just been shown to be selfish, manipulative, obviously incompetent. Yeah, I mean, when you're bad on the field and you're bad off the field, it just doesn't get much worse than that. There are other bad ones, though. I just think Snyder might be the worst of the bad.
Yeah, that's why I'm hoping he sells his team, because we have, 2 or 3, I think it may be 3 playoff appearances. And out of the last 20 some years, I think there's been like 20 quarterbacks. You can't win, as you talk about all the time about the NFL and quarterback play. You can't win a Super Bowl if you've had like as many years as you have quarterbacks.
Do you think, Dave Richmond, do you think, and Dave and DG and anybody else wants to comment, but looking at, I don't know. I know the most valuable NFL franchise is the Dallas Cowboys. At one time, despite their success, I would think the Redskins would have been up there. Do you think that the name change for as far as merchandise, et cetera, hurts their value in terms of their value?
No, to my understanding, it's they've stayed the same. I see where you're going with that, but the reality is they were, unfortunately, and I'm not going to go off on that tangent how I feel about the name change, but I will say they were going to lose a whole bunch of sponsors. They were going to lose a whole bunch of money on that route of things. But my understanding, DG, help me out, but the Broncos sold for a whole bunch recently, and the Redskins, now Commanders, is worth way more than the Broncos.
That's correct. Yes. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, you got to study that over a period of years to know if the name change really hurt you. Obviously, there's a bonus at the beginning of a name change for merchandising reasons. No. Anybody who wants the new coffee cup, the new, authentic jersey, the new T-shirt, the new snow cap, whatever, most people are going to convert, and there's usually a big burst after a name change, unless somebody has a philosophical objection and is angry about the name change. But overall, it usually doesn't hurt, but we'll see. And yes, Washington, because of its history, because of that past success, I know it's been a long time, but people care. That's the bottom line, is how many people care about your franchise. And as much as I love the Carolina Hurricanes, you can tell from TV ratings and things of that sort that not as many people care about the Hurricanes as care about, say, the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Right.
Who aren't always good, but people wake up every day talking about hockey in Toronto. And in our state, there's 15 different sports we could be talking about. So part of its demographics, part of its history. But I would assume that even with their misery on the field, Washington still has to be among the, 6 to 8 most valuable NFL franchises. And obviously, if you're one of the most valuable NFL franchises, you're one of the most valuable American sports franchises, because the NFL tends to be more valuable than most others.
It was crazy to me. I was on all podcasts, podcast me and Dave listened to, Jim Cornette. I don't know if you know who that is, DG, but they were talking about the value of NFL franchise, because they were talking about Tony Khan, owner of AEW, son of the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the value of the Jaguars versus the Cowboys. The Jaguars is the least valuable team in the NFL, but still, it was only like $2 billion difference. I say only $2 billion, but you would think that the Cowboys would be worth like so much more, and I guess it is, because when you get into billions, $2 billion is a lot of money. But I thought the difference would be even greater.
Yeah, for some reason, I thought the difference was greater, but
they could have had bad numbers. So,
I'd have to double check that. But we actually talk about this in my class at UNC Wilmington, where we just dive into sports from so many different angles. The long story short is, the wealthiest, most lucrative professional sports organization in the history of the world is the current version of the National Football League. And it's not even close. Like two and three are the NBA and Major League Baseball, and they're not even close in terms of their annual revenue. The NFL's trending toward insane numbers. And as a lot of people talked about how, they were losing popularity and they were swirling down the drain and they were alienating their fans and there's too many penalties, guess what? They doubled the value of their TV contract. So anybody trying to sell the nonsense that the NFL is swirling down the drain has some kind of a weird agenda that has nothing to do with the truth.
What would be the most, is the Cowboys the most valuable franchise in the world? I would think the Yankees would be up there.
They're both up there.
They are both up there. I forget the pecking order there.
Manchester United is way up there. Like a couple of the soccer teams are in the Premier League are way up there with the Cowboys, the Yankees. I know the Commanders is down there, maybe top 10, top 15. Like it's somewhere in there, but I know those off the top of my head.
Yeah, and those are the 4 most lucrative leagues in the world: NFL, NBA, MLB, English Premier League soccer, in that order. So you'd think that the top franchises in each of those 4 sports are going to be the ones dominating those lists.
Speaking of the NBA, I'm praying for the Hornets to be good, and my buddy Matt Semenza. DG's big in the NBA. I'm praying for your Knicks, David. The one thing I'm like, Charlotte, you can argue, but there's no reason the Knicks should be bad, having the best basketball facility in the whole world with Madison Square Garden. Speaking of TV deals with the New York Knicks, I mean, it's just terrible that you would think they would be better. The league would be a lot better if the Knicks were better, but I'm not a Knicks fan. I just feel bad for Semenza.
Well, hey, you know what? We're starting to play some decent ball here. We're actually in 5th place in the East. We made a nice little trade today. We offloaded Cam Reddish for Josh Hart, who was a former Villanova player. So I actually, believe it or not, fellas, for the first time in many years, I feel like we're at least a decent team. Probably a first-round exit in the playoffs, but at least we're competitive. But it's certainly not like I grew up in the days of, Patrick Ewing and Charles Oakley and John Starks, and we're just trying to get back to that type of level.
And DG, I'll ask this question about the NBA, and then I will throw it back to Bubba for NFL. As far as LeBron James, great that he does a scoring title. But the one thing I'll say about LeBron, and I'm not really a hater like some folks, is if he wanted to win more championships like Jordan did, do like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. Guy has like over 30-some million a year, and he's wondering why he can't get a surrounding cast because we're paying you, LeBron. I mean, that's why my frustration with him is not anti him, but just wish he would share the love so they could get better players. And I'm not even a Lakers guy.
Yeah, he definitely did that in Miami, and that was part of how he won. He added to his list of titles, right? They weren't going to be able to pull off the Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, LeBron thing unless he took less money than he could have made elsewhere. But yeah, obviously, the NBA being a salary cap league, those astronomical numbers that he took with the Lakers, it's complicated, right? I mean, everybody likes making money, but in any salary cap sport, the bigger percentage of that cap you take up personally, the harder it is for them to build a team around you. I mean, it's not mere coincidence on the NFL side. Jalen Hurts is a young quarterback who has not yet had his big payday. So how do the Eagles build around him? Well, he's still on his rookie deal. Instead of paying, Tom Brady type money, I forget his number, but it's a very low number compared to the 20-some million astronomical numbers that some of the veteran quarterbacks make. And it works that way in the NBA as well. I still think LeBron is somewhere in the top 5 greatest NBA players ever. I know not everybody feels that way, but after Michael Jordan and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, to me, LeBron enters the conversation pretty quickly. And four NBA titles, 4 Finals MVPs. I think he's almost at 20 straight All-Star games. I mean, that's unbelievable. That's insane to be that good for that long.
I got an interesting NBA comment and something I've noticed over the years. Is there a player that has become more popular and made more money since his career ended than Shaquille O'Neal? Shaquille O'Neal may be the most beloved sports personality in the world now. Everybody loves Shaq. When he was a player, I remember a lot of people hated him as much as they loved him. Now everybody loves him. He does Papa John's, and you see him on social media always doing charitable acts. I believe Shaquille O'Neal is a bigger star now than he was as a player.
And how about Charles Barkley? He makes $10 million to run his mouth every year on TNT. I mean, come on, $10 million.
Yeah, but Charles isn't as beloved as Shaq. Everybody loves Shaq now.
I'll tell you, I love Barkley. I really do. One of the reasons why I like him so much is because he's not afraid to take shots at NBA players.
True.
And I think it's fantastic because some of these guys, we all know, they get their contracts and then, during the regular season, in the dog days of like January and February, they're dogging it on defense. And I just love Barkley because he'll call him out in a second. He'll trash him on live TV. And it's refreshing. There's not a lot of guys who have the guts to do it.
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, I'm not exactly, pulling aside the curtain of the Wizard of Oz here, but when you have a public platform, large or small, there is an upside to being bold with your comments and your criticisms, and there is a downside to it. There's no doubt about it. And where you draw that line can help you or hurt you. And I think, one of the reasons Shaq is more universally beloved than Charles is that Shaq is less likely to make those bold criticisms. Charles, even as a player, was unafraid of doing or saying anything. I mean, that's why the Philly fans loved him when he was with the Sixers. He feels like human truth serum, like whatever he thinks he's actually going to say. And I'm a fairly bold broadcaster. I don't say everything that I think, right? I mean, there's a risk to that. And especially when you have platforms the size that those guys have, every criticism of an NBA player is going to get back to that player, obviously. And then you got to deal with those repercussions. Charles just doesn't seem to care about the repercussions. It's going to do it his way, which I respect.
One of these days, we're going to have Charles Barkley on the podcast. Matt McCarthy's going to make it happen for us.
That would be awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. Podcast gold, no doubt about it. You want to go back to the NFL, Bubba?
Very quickly, because we had a couple comments, and then I know Matt had some interesting information for us regarding franchises in 2022. But Richard Allsbrook, who just chimed in regarding the owner conversation, saying, David Tepper, please buy the Commanders. We can hit the owner reset button in Carolina.
No, he's the new Jerry Jones. No way.
But since you brought up the Carolina Panthers, want to get your thoughts, DG, if you have any, on the hiring of Frank Reich.
Yeah, I like the Frank Reich hire. Frank Reich was the Eagles offensive coordinator when they won the Super Bowl against Brady 5 years ago. And remember, that was with Nick Foles after the Carson Wentz debacle. So it's impressive to me when an offensive coordinator can ride through those bumps and still help his team to a Super Bowl championship with a backup quarterback. Not just a backup quarterback, but Foles became a star and just had insane numbers that year. And I think Frank Reich's track record at Indianapolis was more good than bad. When he had Andrew Luck as a starting quarterback, he made the playoffs. When Luck shocked everybody and retired, the Colts missed the playoffs. Then the Colts got Phillip Rivers, and Frank Reich turned them back into a playoff team. And then no more Rivers and no more playoffs. So to me, when he's had the pieces, he has cashed in. And that, along with that track record with the Eagles as an offensive coordinator, David Tepper said he wanted an offensive guy. And there's some controversy about how Steve Wilks did not get the full-time job. Let's be real. Yes, Steve Wilks is a minority trying to get a head coaching job in a league that doesn't have a lot of minorities. But if David Tepper philosophically wanted an offensive guy as his next coach, well, then Steve Wilks's coordinator title, which is defense, has a hell of a lot more to do with the ultimate conclusion than the color of his skin. And I understand David Tepper wasn't just going off the cuff with his choice of an offensive guy. Guess what? Nick Sirianni of the Eagles, offensive background. Andy Reid of the Chiefs, offensive background. The majority of the teams that have done the best in recent years are led by offensive-minded coaches. So Tepper's not pulling that out of thin air. He's paid a lot of money for that franchise. If he wants a head coach who has an offensive background, he has every right to hire that head coach with an offensive background. And Frank Reich, of course, a former quarterback, led some amazing historical comebacks, college and pro. That's part of his resume too. I see why the Panthers did it, and I thought he was one of the best candidates out there.
And this with Wilks was certainly the sentimental favorite. But like you said, DG, when you look at the history of the Panthers, except for Seifert, every Dom Capers, the original coach, like every coach I can think of has a defensive, Ron Rivera, a defensive background, right?
Let's see. Are we forgetting everybody? Anybody? No, I think you're right. That was a run of defensive coaches. Real quick in the comments section, Richard Alsbrick is the father of one of my former interns.
Yeah, we were going to bring that up.
Quick shout out to Richard. His daughter, Julia, seriously, is an extremely impressive young person. So I hope she's doing well. I fondly remember her time with us. She's a great representative of your family. So thanks for being with us tonight, and thanks for sending your daughter to the David Glenn show back in the day.
She must take after her mom.
I wouldn't know those details, but I can tell you Julia's the real deal. She's a really impressive young person.
No doubt about it. Let's talk some Hurricanes too while we have a chance, because Kyle Barber can chime in with me for the concert thing. I was telling so the tickets now I was telling you, DG, I'm happy that my team is winning, right? So my kids are like, hey, so Dad, when are we going to a Hurricanes game? So I keep like checking. The 300, the nosebleeds are
Dave, let me check when teacher night is, and and I can let Jessica just reimburse us for the tickets.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. There's all sorts of special nights, and I think if the Canes were not so good this year, Dave, and I know this is a season ticket. I'm a partial season ticket holder. The guy I share him with goes to more games than I do, but he's old and retired and independently wealthy, so he can go all the time. But the better the Canes are, the fewer of the midseason and late season discounts you see. That's just the reality. It's like, there's the laws of supply and demand. So you'll have to find one of those side doors like a teacher's night and buy through your friends. But you should get them there. That would be cool. And keep in touch with me on that, because I don't get as many tickets falling into my lap as I did for about 20 years when I was hosting a radio show. But it still does happen from time to time, and I'd be happy to help you out.
Is there a big scalping market for premium Canes tickets?
Gosh. Yeah, like I was saying, the 300 section, check this out, Kyle. the 300 section DG and I were talking about, I believe retails for the $30 range. I mean, they're way, way, way up there.
Yeah,
And
section 3. Yeah.
Stanley Cup. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but like now it's going from 30 because they're good to the secondary market. It's like I'm checking it out. Like every time I check out for a game, it's like $150 a ticket.
Yeah, I know scalping has become outrageous with concerts, and at PNC, and we're getting off on a tangent here, but at PNC for concerts, it's not as bad as Live Nation venues. Live Nation doesn't own PNC. Live Nation venues, now we're talking concerts exclusively. It has become an epidemic with the scalping. I mean, it literally more tickets are scalped than bought by the general public. And I don't know what Live Nation is going to do about that, but I've noticed that specifically trying to get tickets at, say, Walnut Creek, for example, versus Greensboro Coliseum or PNC. It is so much easier for concerts to get them at PNC or Greensboro Coliseum. They're not all going to the secondary market and being scalped. And the only thing that I can conclude is because they're not Live Nation venues.
Well, the only concert, DG, you'll love this because you and I in that age bracket would love these two bands. The only decent priced concert with good acts would be
coming at Walnut Creek.
Walnut Creek, I'm sorry, yeah, is September 15th. It's Leonard Skinner and ZZ Top, and it's like I think the $29 for the lawn seats.
Yeah, and for whatever, and I think that has to do with supply and demand. But I bought tickets for Eric Church and Cody Jinks at Walnut Creek and spent $350 on crappy tickets, and it's just unbelievable. I'm going to Greensboro Coliseum, see Brooks and Dunn, a couple other shows, spent half that for better seats, and something's got to be done. Scalping used to be, you had to sell things at face value. That's not the case. That's not the case with the internet now. Something needs to be done because it's getting to where, at least with concerts, scalpers, and particularly Live Nation venues, again, are buying the majority of the tickets. And I don't know how people afford to pay the scalpers' prices. I really don't. Tyler Childers is going to be at Red Hat, which is another Live Nation venue, and I want to go, but I'll be damned if I'm going to spend $400 a ticket.
True. Here's what they're doing, DG. I'm sorry, and we'll get back to Matt has that list in just a second. But this is a great story for you, DG. If I were a writer, I would totally run with this. Here's what they're doing. So they've got, everybody felt sorry for them. They lost all this money, Live Nation did during COVID. Well, all of a sudden now these bots are buying up all the tickets, and you don't even get a chance to buy a regular ticket anymore. It's automatically on the secondary market. There's something going on there. Where there's smoke, there's fire, like the cliche.
Oh, it's definitely.
But there's something going on there that's just not right. And anyway.
Dave, I had pre-sale. I had the pre-sale code for. Sorry, DJ. I had the pre-sale code for Eric Church and Cody Jinks, and I was there when they went on sale during the pre-sale before the general public. And literally, I would click on a seat, and it would be sold while I was clicking on it. No human can be faster than another human that fast. Had to be bots.
It's real quick on that. There's multiple layers to it. One is some of these companies, like a Ticketmaster, like a Live Nation, are so huge that they do monopolistic things that drive up the prices. And I know there are other ticket companies out there trying to compete, but when you have such a large share of the market,
when you own the venues.
Yeah, exactly. You throw your weight around in a way that is very anti-competitive, and there are American laws designed to deal with this stuff. It's just a matter of whether they're applied or not. Now, the whole, bots buying on behalf of scalpers, that's a separate issue. But even some of the performers have been frustrated with this. And every once in a while, a performer steps out and says, I'm not using y'all anymore. I need my fans to be able to afford to go to my concerts. And every once in a while, they'll just do an end around on the traditional way of buying or selling tickets, but to make a point. But that's, the exception, not the rule. It's frustrating for everybody, for sure.
I really believe Live Nation is controlling those bots, and they're buying their own tickets and then reselling them on the secondary market. I really believe that.
I do too. I'm not a conspiracy guy, but something is going there. Hey, Matt, you've been patiently waiting. I'm sorry for going off on a tangent there, my friend. Just frustrated with our support group about high ticket prices, but you had the list for the top franchises, right?
Yeah, so when you guys brought up this conversation, I was pretty intrigued by it. And so I pulled up an article. This is from Forbes. This is the 50 most valuable sports teams in 2022. So I'll just give you the top 8. For me, there's really only one big surprise here, but obviously number 1, the Dallas Cowboys. You guys hit that right on the head at $8 billion. Number 2 to me is kind of a shocker, and that would be the New England Patriots at $6.4 billion. It's a little surprising to me. Then you have the Los Angeles Rams, the New York Yankees, the New York Giants, the New York Knicks. So you get the 3. Obviously, you get the New York market. The Chicago Bears at 6, the Golden State Warriors, and then the Washington Commanders come in at $5.6 billion, right before the Lakers. So
where do the Cubs fall on that list, Matt?
What's that?
The Cubs.
Say again, Kyle?
Chicago Cubs.
Chicago Cubs. Let's see. Might be scrolling down here. By the way, the Eagles are number 16.
All right.
As I'm looking through here. Let's see. Chicago Cubs. Here we go. Number 34 at $3.8 billion.
And I would think if they had more success, they would be higher because they do have a huge national fan base like myself. But the lack of success is probably keeping them down a little.
It's the problem of the league. The Major League Baseball has a huge problem of now gimmicks like we're talking about in college baseball where they're doing pitch clocks and everything. Most fans that if they don't like baseball, they're not going to watch it. A pitch clock is not going to bring them to watch the games to try to shorten it up. I think it's just a really bad gimmick, but that's my personal opinion on that. I'm not
Matt, forgive me if you said this. What about the Red Sox? Did you say the Red Sox?
Let me give you the Red Sox, and I'll tell you just of note since Carolina, but the Panthers come in at number 39.
I'm surprised they made it.
Yep. Boston Red Sox. So this is why I was a little surprised by the Patriots are number 2. The Boston Red Sox are number 30 at $3.9 billion. So,
I think that just shows the difference between the NFL and the Major League Baseball.
I'm telling you, baseball.
Sure does. Yep.
Baseball has got to do something, but it's not the pitch clock to get more fans. I don't think that's not the pitch clock is not why they're the third or fourth. I guess the third best league in the professional league.
I think Major League Baseball, and maybe I'm in the minority here, but I think a shorter season. I think what they did during the COVID year, maybe not that short, but I think less games would get people's interest more. There's so many games, and I think that's what makes football so special. There's few games, college and pro. I think if Major League Baseball had a shorter schedule, I think people would be more interested.
What do you think, DG?
There's an argument for scarcity, and it's made most often in baseball, right? If you're an ECU football fan, you're only going to have 6, 7 home games, right?
Yep.
If you're a fan of the New York Yankees, you have 81 options.
Yep.
Just in the regular season, right? And that's a lot. So, the NBA and the NHL are around that 80 or so game mark. That works for those sports. 162 is a marathon, man. And you know how it is. Leagues hesitate to cut back. They've got their bean counters figuring out, whether there'd be more demand for a slightly shorter schedule, but anything that doesn't increase their bottom line, they're going to be nervous about. Broadcasting rights, of course, shrink a little bit if you shrink the season. But baseball has an issue. There's no doubt about it. Whereas the NFL has been growing exponentially and NBA is on the upswing. Other leagues around the world, many soccer leagues, even Major League Soccer in our country has been on the upswing.
Yep.
The NHL has been on the upswing. Baseball is the one that's plateaued quite a bit. It's still very popular, but it's not growing at the same rate that some of those other leagues are, and that's why they're scrutinizing everything all the way down to the pitch clock.
You think increasing playoff teams even more? I think it would have to create more interest because more teams would be competing down the stretch. Just simple mathematics. If they would expand the playoffs more, maybe shorten the regular season, expand the playoffs more, that would probably help a lot.
Yeah, you always get more money from your TV partners for a larger playoff. And the other thing it does is it keeps more teams in the race for a longer period of time, right?
Exactly.
If there's more spots up for grabs, you're not buried halfway through July or whatever. you might still have a fighting chance to get that last wild card or whatever. So there's an upside to it. And each league is dealing with that a little bit differently, right? The baseball, we're already at the point where roughly, the NBA has tweaked this, but more than half of NHL teams make the playoffs, right? If it's 16 out of 30 or 31, that's more than half.
Yep.
The NBA with those tweaked early first round games, it's more than half. Baseball and the NFL have hesitated to grow to the point where, more than half or even close to half are getting in. But even the NCAA men's basketball tournament, guys, there's a legitimate debate as we speak of going beyond. It's been 64/68 since 1985.
That's correct.
So very slight growth with that addition of those 4 teams at some point along the way. But that's 35 years or 37 years of 64 or 68. And a lot of people want to make it bigger. And, of course, the TV partners are saying they'll pay more for a bigger tournament.
Rooney from D1 Baseball, we had him on the other day, and he was talking about college baseball. It's considered expanding to what was it, 74 teams, Dave? Bubba, what? It was 70-some teams.
Yeah, it was more than what we have now. And that, I guess I could argue with basketball. ESPN wants, off the top of my head, DG, 96 teams or something like that. And maybe I sound like football, like college football people, but I just thought 96 was a little much.
Well, you're just combining the NIT with the NCAA is what they're doing.
Maybe.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's a little bit much. And I think you really run the risk of damaging the regular season when you go that far with it. I think college football right now, I think they've done a great thing by expanding, right? But you don't want to take it too far because you don't want to lose the importance of the regular season. So I think March Madness is as close to a perfect product as you can get in sports. And I say just leave it. Just for one, let's just leave it alone.
I agree with Matt on that. It is as close to perfect as we have in all of sports. The world stops. Even a pro city like I grew up in Philadelphia, where seriously for 11 months, college basketball is not on podcasts. It is not on WIP, the big sports radio station up in Philly. It's just kind of an afterthought because you have the NFL and Major League Baseball and the NBA and the NHL. So college sports have a tough time getting on the front page, so to speak. But even in places like New York, Philly, LA, man, the March Madness matters. And, we all know it comes down to money. And when college presidents need a new pot of gold, they start looking around for a way to get that pot of gold. But competitively, I've always thought, philosophically speaking, if you ever get to the point where you think you might be leaving out a potential national champion, that's when you should consider expanding. But remember that the lowest seed ever to win the NCAA tournament is an 8 seed.
Villanova?
As Villanova in 1985. Very good work. And, of course, Carolina came close to matching that last year as an 8 seed, losing in the title game. But, the final teams that get in at large are like 11 seeds. So it's not like, no 11 seed, 10 seed has ever made. I mean, they've made it to the Final Four in rare examples, but I've never gotten the feeling that one was good enough to win the national title. If we got to that point of parity, then I think competitively you would look at expansion, but I don't think we're there right now.
Let's talk about parity in the regular season. You obviously cover the ACC probably better than anyone. I will argue that against anyone, but man, it's I was telling someone the other day, and I guess I showed my age, but help me out on this. The last time Clemson won the regular season, I believe off the top of my head, was 1987.
I believe it was 90. I feel horrible if I'm letting you down on that. And that is in my years covering the league, so I should know that. I'm pretty sure it's 1990, but it was that Cliff Ellis era where, and Dave, it's not only the last time, it's the only time.
Right.
In 70 years of ACC basketball, Clemson has finished in first place once, and Clemson has never won the ACC tournament.
Correct.
So they have a chance. I don't think they're going to do it. But the bottom line for the ACC this year, like last year, is that it's just not a very good regular season. It's just not. Virginia is the only team anywhere near the national top 10. Duke and Carolina have had their moments in the top 25. The Wolfpack is in the top 25. Miami is pretty good. It's just, for decades, you expected to see 5 or 6 ACC teams in the top 25. Guys, there was I think it was a 29-year period where 26 of 29 years, the ACC provided at least one of the number 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament. So, of course, there's 4 number 1 seeds every year. 26 times in 29 years, the ACC had at least one, sometimes more than one. There were times that the ACC had 3 of the 4. It has not been that way since the year the COVID, of course, canceled the 2020 tournament. In 2021, the ACC had no 1s, no 2s, and no 3s. And last year, it was Duke as a number 2 seed, and then Carolina was the next highest seed as an 8. So this is a 3-year trend where the ACC has been down in the regular season. That does not prevent you from being great in the postseason. Last year, the ACC got beat up for having a down year for 4 straight months, and it was accurate criticism. Nobody was making anything up. When you don't produce but one number 2 seed, and Carolina went from the bubble to making as an 8, and they're your second highest ranked team, it's a down year by ACC standards. But it didn't prevent Miami, Duke, and Carolina from being 3 of the final 8, and it didn't prevent Duke and Carolina from being 2 of the final 4. So they saved their season, in a sense, with a great March Madness run. We'll see if they have something in that again this year. But that's the only thing that's going to change the narrative, because right now the ACC is just not what it usually is in men's basketball.
Let's talk about ACC football. I know the schedule recently came out and Mac Brown was complaining. I guess the trend is to get rid of divisions, because that way you have your 2 top teams play, which I really don't have a problem with that. But what were your thoughts on that with the ACC? I know we talk East Carolina a lot, but you're ACC expert. What is your take on that?
Well, they definitely did it because they don't want a bad matchup in the ACC title game.
Yep.
And there was a couple years ago, I don't have all these numbers off the top of my head, but just picture the Big Ten championship game drawing, 10 or 12 million people. And the SEC championship game, I'm talking TV audience, 10 or 12 million people. And the ACC championship game, seriously now, drew like 3 million people.
Wow.
Because it was Wake Forest against Pitt. So nothing against those 2 programs. They had good years that year. But there was no Clemson. There was no other brand name. And the TV ratings just collapsed as a result. So if you do away with divisions, whoever your 2 best teams are, you can match them up. And like next year, for example, going into 2023, the ACC's best bets are, as usual, the Clemson Tigers, but also the Florida State Seminoles. And it's been a while since both were really, really good. Jimbo Fisher 10 years ago led Florida State to the national title, but the Seminoles have been mostly down since then. Mike Norvell went into last year at FSU on the hot seat. Now, He delivered in a huge way, so he's not on the hot seat now. And in fact, he's recruited so well. It's basically Clemson, Florida State, and we'll see who else is good. We'll see. There are plenty of who think they can be good, but I think the conversation starts with Clemson and FSU.
In fact, Norvell just got an extension to his contract, did he, DG?
I believe he did, yes.
So
and understandably so. The guy, that's how it works, right? You're on the hot seat and a couple steps away from possibly getting fired. You have a big year, and you tell the administration, if you want to keep me. Remember, Jimbo Fisher told the FSU administration, you need to do A, B, and C to keep me, and they didn't do A, B, and C, and he took off for Texas A&M. So Florida State views itself as a national championship program. They had the 2 under Bobby Bowden. They had the 1 under Jimbo Fisher. So they're not going to let a coach fly the coop, especially after a really good year and heading into what they think could be a special season.
Yeah, I back to the divisions. I don't like it typically doing away with the divisions. I understand why it's being done to make sure you have the two best teams playing for the championship and have a higher chance of making playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. But if there's one league that to me it doesn't matter about divisions, it's the ACC. The league is still compared to a lot of leagues, still makes geographical sense, and you can pretty much pair anybody together, and it doesn't look too stupid.
Well,
I'm with you
I'll
on
tell
that.
you.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
The-
David.
That's all good. The ACC needs to do as many things as it can to upgrade its football product.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. It's so far behind the SEC and the Big Ten. It's just it's got to create, early season interregional games and other things that their TV partners like, because they're really behind financially right now.
Yeah, and the other conference that really, in my opinion, needs to consider doing away with the divisions is the Big Ten, because the way it's structured, you have Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State on one side of that conference, fellas, and you wind up inevitably, like this year, you wind up with a Purdue, right? No offense to Purdue, but they are not the second best team in the Big Ten. So, it does make some sense as you look around the country and you see these types of matchups, but it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds.
Well, UCLA and USC coming in, I don't know what the hell kind of divisions they would have anyway.
And they'll go in the West, I would think, but
Well, you would think, but I mean, it still doesn't make any sense geographically.
No, it doesn't. No. Hey, DG, speaking of realignment, there's talk this week with Pac-12 for SMU at San Diego State to go to the Pac-12.
What I would do if I was the Pac-12. I would take one of those schools. I wouldn't take the other.
I had heard there was talk about the Pac-12 wants to get on the Eastern time zone. They want to get Eastern teams because they don't feel like if it's a Heisman race or there's the Kyles of the world and the Bubbas of the world, they'll be up to 3 o'clock in the morning, early Sunday morning, still watching games. But most of their fans,
watching Mountain West, must have.
Yeah, well, I know you do, but I meant the West Coast games, if you will. But I've heard that. Would you do that if you're a Pac-12? Is to expand all the way to the Eastern time zone for recruiting, for watching the games? Like you could have a noon kickoff that way, or a 3 o'clock, 3:30 window.
I would take SMU and Tulane.
I would consider it for possibly different reasons. And the long story short is we often use the phrase that a lot of people don't like, Power 5 conferences, right, in football. The reality is it's now a Power 2. It's the SEC and the Big Ten making so much more money than everybody else that they are playing in a different universe. The next three, the Big 12 and the ACC are doing okay. The Pac-12 is the one in big trouble, in part because the Pac-12 network has been an absolute disaster. I mean, the ACC network is in 50, 60, 70 million homes. The Pac-12 network, the last I saw, was in less than 10 million homes. I mean, you can't possibly have a functioning economic model, which, it's a TV channel and things are moving to streaming, but it still matters to have a presence, right? Because, the ACC network on traditional TV carries some games, but ACC Network Extra streams some lower profile games in the bigger sports and a lot of other sports. You still need that brand. And the Pac-12 has royally screwed it up. The Big Ten channel, or Big Ten network, has been a success. The SEC network has been a success. The ACC network took a long time, but eventually became a success. And the Pac-12 is just drowning now that they're losing UCLA and USC. Arguably their two biggest brand names. Their channel is an absolute disaster. And I know for a fact that they just had exploratory talks with the ACC about not like a merger, but some kind of a scheduling alliance where Pac-12 products were going to be on some kind of an ACC network partnership because their own channel was going so poorly. That didn't happen, obviously, but that's why the Pac-12 has to consider these things. It's trending toward number 5 among what used to be called the Power 5, and that's not where they want to be, and that's why they have to look at expansion and realignment. I'm just not sure, as we've discussed in the past, you don't just add schools to add schools. They've got to bring more value to the table in terms of their football exposure or just a winning tradition or whatever. It all starts with football, and you got to bring more to the plate than you're taking as another mouth to feed at the trough. And all due respect to San Diego State or SMU or anybody else, I don't know who's out there besides Notre Dame as a full-time member who hasn't already been picked up. Oklahoma and Texas were really valuable commodities in the Big 12. Guess what? The SEC knew that and got them. Southern Cal and UCLA were really, really valuable commodities. Big Ten saw that, went out and got them. Long ago, ACC went out and got Florida State. They needed a football upgrade. They got it in the early 90s. I'm not sure who brings more than they take at this point. But the Pac-12 may be in desperation mode right now.
Yeah, if I was the Pac-12 to get more East Coast attention, and they ain't going to come all the way east, but really SMU, you get the Dallas market. That may help with Pac-12 TV expansion if you can get down into Texas. A lot of people down there. Tulane's red hot right now. They're a private school. The Pac-12 is all about academics, supposedly. So Tulane fits that profile. They bring the New Orleans market in. If I was the Pac-12, and I'm an East Carolina fan saying this, and a lot of our listeners are going to get mad at me for saying this, I would take SMU and Tulane. It would destroy the American. That would be it. We would be Sunbelt bound. But that's what I would probably do.
And speaking of East Carolina, is there? Do you stay in the American?
I don't, because if we lose SMU and Tulane, the TV money is going to go away. The TV money is going to go away when the current contract's up anyway in 28. But if we lose SMU and Tulane, we lose two of our biggest media markets. I think the TV contract would be renegotiated prior to 28. The TV money would go away, and I think the travel costs would offset the move to go into the Sun Belt. I think it would be the logical thing to do at that point.
Well, I think the reason why Oresco didn't go our route of picking a Marshall, the ODUs of the world, teams like that, is because the ESPN told him, if you want to stay at the level you are now as far as the TV money, these are the schools you're going to have to pick. So like the Birmingham's, the biggest city in Alabama, UTSA, even though North Texas, we already have SMU, you still get the Texas market there, the Dallas market. Like, I think they told, I don't know necessarily that he did have a choice, but I think he went with the bigger markets because that's what ESPN told him to do. I don't know. That's my.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dave. But I think if we lose SMU and Tulane, and I'm the only one talking about Tulane going to the Pac-12, keep that in mind. I think the TV contract is done before 28. I think it's going to drop dramatically.
No doubt. Well, DG, I'm looking at the time. We went way over than usual. But we wanted to ask you before we let you go, big Eagles fan, I had to save the tough question for you. Who wins Super Bowl 57 in Arizona on Sunday night?
I got to take the Eagles. And even if I wasn't a fan, I certainly wouldn't bet a lot of money on it because I do think they're two of the best offenses in the NFL, and they're pretty darn good on defense too. But beyond my sentimental vote for the Eagles, I just think they're the slightly more balanced team. To me, the only way the Chiefs win is if Patrick Mahomes is truly healthy on that ankle, can evade what is a really good Eagles pass rush, and expose one of the Eagles' only weak links, and that is they have problems against scrambling quarterbacks who improvise. That's the Chiefs' route to victory. Can they execute it? They could, but I think the better, smarter bet, the higher percentage bet, is Eagles over Chiefs by whatever. And I hope that's the case because I'm hosting a Super Bowl party, and it's going to be really, really quiet around here if the Eagles lose.
It's kind of like election night where your candidate doesn't win.
Yes.
Everybody leaves after halftime.
Great analogy. That's exactly right.
And how can people find your work? We're hoping again one of these days I'll get you back on some kind of broadcasting thing, selfishly, so I can hear you. Miss the show a lot, but how can people find your work, my friend?
Yeah, I have a really fun column that I write at a website here in North Carolina called chapelborough.com. At this stage of my life, because I have a variety of things going on, including teaching at UNC Wilmington, I just needed somebody that kind of let me write at my own frequency. And Chapel Borough has been a great partner in that regard. So it's Chapel and then BORO.com. And folks can always follow me on Twitter at David Glenn Show. I always link to other writing that I do elsewhere, other appearances that I do, podcasts, radio, etc. So if you want to follow me and all the work that I'm still doing, including my radio visits all over the place, I'm still on the radio every day. I just don't do it on my own show anymore. DavidGlennShow.com is the best place to follow.
Is that Chapel Borough name? Is that a reference to UNC actually being in Carborough instead of Chapel Hill?
I believe it's a combination of, they do a lot in Durham County, Orange County, Hillsborough over there, Carborough is over there. So there's some Chapel and there's some Borough going on, and somebody came up with ChapelBorough.com.
Gotcha.
I was not involved in that.
Okay.
All right. Well, if we need some legal advice, or I'm going to pick up the phone and have you on speed dial if we get in trouble with talking about the Super Bowl.
Of course.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. We'll see how Super Bowl 57 goes, and love to have you back on again soon.
Thanks. I always enjoy being with y'all. Kyle, Bubba, Matt, Dave, anytime. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, DJ.
You got it.
Hey, thanks so much, David. Take care.
You got it. You too.
Bye-bye.
Dave, is he the consigliere? I can't say that word. Consigliere to the Sports Objective?
Is it what?
Consigliere. Come on, Dave. It's a little Italian for you, Dave.
Yes, thank
Help
you.
me out. I
Thank
didn't
you,
know.
Matt.
All right, that's the first time I've ever heard that whole thing.
I'll tell you guys.
Explain it to him, Matt.
Yeah. Well, he's like the boss, right?
Oh,
Yeah. He's the advisor. He's who you go to when you got a problem.
That's right.
I got you. Now I understand. Okay. I learned something tonight. All right. So, guys, talking today, by the way, talking to the ticket office today, very excited, checking on my baseball tickets. There are people out there, and I told the ticket office, I'll tell everybody today. So here's the deal. Sometime this week, maybe by Monday, for those that are panicking about your baseball tickets, no worries. You'll get your tickets. A lot of people are doing the digital. I elected to go with the card because I want to have it in my wallet. I'm just nervous about these things right here, cell phones. So sometimes your battery is dead or whatever. That way I can just show my card. I'm a little old school on that. But you'll be able to get your tickets. And guys, check this out. A new record, over 2,700 season tickets sold for ECU baseball. I want to give a shout out to, of course, the baseball program, but Coleman Spain, Parker Eason, everybody there at the ticket office. I told them they have a thankless job. Congratulations to them. I think there's some tickets in the jungle, Bubba. Is that right? Single game tickets in the.
Yeah, there are. They're going on sale this week.
Going on sale. And so we have that piece to talk about. So congratulations there. And by the way, guys, the goal this year, just so y'all know, I checked again today, is 16,000 for football season tickets. I'm hoping that, like Bubba, I'm hoping we can get more than 16,000. But you can get your tickets at 1-800-DIAL-ECU or ecpirates.com. In fact, ecpirates.com, you can go anytime, like me, sitting at a computer. You can just go right there and get your tickets there.
Not the most appealing home schedule this year. It'll be interesting to see how ticket sales are. It really will.
Yeah. And Brandon asked about that question about what's the amount of sold so far. They're still on pace with last year, and that's without NC State on the schedule. So like Kyle said, to be fair about season tickets, we don't have NC State at home.
You're losing UCF. There's no Cincinnati.
No,
there's even no Memphis this year. So
right.
The home schedule, Marshall's appealing. I'd really have to go look at it. I'm excited anytime the Pirates are playing. We could be playing Little Sisters of the Poor, but a lot of people really seem to care about the opponent.
Yeah, you have Marshall, you have Gardner-Webb, you have Tulsa, Tulane, SMU, and Charlotte.
So you got the Tulane game, probably the most appealing outside of Marshall.
And Matt, how are those mighty 49ers? How are they going to travel to Dowdy Fickle?
Well, the whole world will be on their seat for that one, fellas, because when the 49ers travel, everybody pays attention. So, we'll see how that goes.
Will that be our Thanksgiving week? No, I heard, and I know the conference schedule has not came out yet, but I heard or read somewhere, and I don't know where this information came from or if I dreamt it, that Charlotte is going to start their American Conference campaign at East Carolina. I don't know if I dreamt that, made it up in my head, or what, because the conference schedule has not came out yet.
Hey, Matt, I'm just wondering, like, I feel bad for Semenza because Matt's like, what do I do, fellas? I'm going to come down. I'm going to hang out with you. The first half, I'm going to pull for East Carolina, and the second half, I'm going to pull for the 49ers. Is that what you're going to do with your favorite teams?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you this. I do hope that we are their first opponent in the American so we can lay an absolute beating on them and send them back to Charlotte with their tail between their legs. So that's my wish there.
Yeah, there's one thing I'll say to Coach Houston, and I don't ever really say this, but I'll say this: you better beat Charlotte. I mean, God almighty. If we lose to Charlotte, oh my God, it won't be as bad as losing to A&T, but it'll be pretty bad.
No, there's a reason why. Not only that, Kyle, because of that factor, but also remember he was going to Charlotte. And then finally, he was kind of hinting around that he wanted this job, and Mo gets fired like a day or two later.
Yeah, it was the next day.
I don't think he's exchanging Christmas cards with the University of Charlotte.
It was the next morning. It was almost done intentionally. I think that news was. I remember it being leaked, coming out about 5 o'clock on a Thursday evening.
You and I were talking. Remember that?
Yeah, you called me and let me know Mo was fired. And on Friday morning, and about 11:30 or so, and so it was a fast turnaround from supposedly going to Charlotte to looking like we're firing Mo so we can get him in East Carolina.
Hey Matt, Kyle and I are like that, and Bubba, that was our guy. So I'm talking to Kyle, and I'm like, man, what are we going to do? This is like the guy that we wanted, and like the perfect fit for East Carolina. And he's going to Charlotte, to Matt's favorite team.
I remember we said we better fire Mo's ass tonight. We waited till the next morning.
It was, Matt, I'm like positive. And when I heard that he was going to Charlotte initially, I was just, and that was so depressing to think that Charlotte beat us out for a head coach. I mean,
my second choice would have worked out right if they'd have went with it, because my second choice was Shane Beamer.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well,
who the hell knew I was right on that one? But
two really good choices there. I mean, you couldn't go wrong with either one of those guys. I mean, so hey, at least it goes to show that we kind of did it right in our evaluation process.
Yeah. Do you mean me, and do you mean the guys on the Sports Objective, Matt, or East Carolina?
I'm referring to the fact that it came down to Houston and Shane Beamer.
I don't know if it came down to Houston and Beamer. Just in my brain, it did. I don't know that Beamer was on. The rumor, Matt, actually, if you remember, the rumor at the time, if it was going to be Houston or old craphead that said Arkansas State now. What's his name, Bubba?
Butch Jones.
Butch Jones. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Butch Jones.
Butch Jones,
yep. AKA craphead.
Yep.
Yeah, that was well. Anyway, what were worked out, guys. And speaking of which, by the way, guys. How about the spring game coming up in April? Are you going to be with us 2 weekends in a row? That would be asking too much, right, Matt?
Well, the UCF series is that weekend in baseball. That'd be a good weekend to come.
Oh, yeah. But you're going to already be in North Carolina the weekend before, right?
I'm going to be in North Carolina that week for business. And so, yeah, it works out perfectly with the spring game and baseball that weekend. So, yeah, I'm excited about that.
You going to have your son fly down that weekend to go to the UCF series?
Which weekend is that? Which weekend are you referring to?
The spring game weekend.
Oh, yeah, so I'll be there. Yeah.
Are you going to have your son fly down, since you'll already be here on business?
Oh, I don't think so. I think it'll just be me for that one. So I'll be hanging out with you guys.
I'll tell you what we can do is I'll fly you down on my jet, and I can fly you down, Matt, and then we can go back and get Chase. How about that?
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. He would love to go.
Yeah, it's called Frontier Airlines. Spirit.
I heard it's actually a weather balloon.
So a Chinese weather balloon.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard. Dave Plus.
Yeah, that's how I make deliveries for Uber. By the way, guys, I got to talk about this real quick.
Well, I'll just say this: if I come in a Chinese weather balloon, you guys have permission to shoot it down.
We'll do it. We'll shoot it.
What if you're delivering Chinese food, Matt?
Will you have some kung pao chicken and some egg rolls with you?
I'm not going to shoot it down. Well, maybe it would, so I could get the food. But Guys, this is
And Dave, you don't have to wait until I go over the Atlantic Ocean. You could shoot it down wherever it needs to be.
Okay,
We got to watch for debris.
Yeah, exactly. Hey,
we need to change this topic quick.
I'm trying to. So, did you guys see where East Carolina? We're all like now in our 40 somethings, but now they have this thing where, in fact, it was in our group text that we have for Pirate fans, where literally they have this robot that's delivering food. Have you seen this on the campus? Have you?
I have not. No.
But it's like,
Yeah, I saw something about it, Dave.
and that's the weirdest thing. I haven't seen it, but people are talking about. Our friends are talking about how they see these robots driving. Help me out, those that are in the chat, because some of them are. They know what I'm talking about. They've commented on it, but they literally see, like, going down 10th Street. You see this robot, like,
Sure, it's not John Gilbert.
No.
I love how everything goes back to Gilbert.
Where did that come from?
Gilbert's just very robotic. He's just very monotone and kind of not an outgoing personality. It really wasn't. It really was. It was just a little dig. It's not anything. No one at the athletic department take offense. Gilbert's done a good job recently.
And I wasn't even going there. I was talking about how crazy. I'm like almost 50 years old.
Yeah, Gilbert's done a good job recently. That wasn't even a dig. It was just funny to me.
Okay. I was just talking about like how I'm an old dog. You know, you see like all of a sudden you're driving, you see this like robot driving like food from. It's supposed to be like on East Carolina's campus only right now, I think, is my understanding. But it's just crazy. I just thought it was.
Dave,
I got used to. It's change.
It's crazy, and I know this is going back like a little over a year ago. So Domino's Pizza, they're testing like in a few select locations.
Oh yeah,
it's a special, almost
drone.
like a drone. It's a self-driving car that will actually drive to the home. You know, you order out for delivery, and this self-driving car that's operated by like GPS will actually drive itself.
That couldn't possibly go wrong.
Yeah, what could go wrong?
That could never be robbed, right, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's gonna be. I know they had like 3 or 4 of them like around the country in select spots. I'm curious to know how that's going. Like if that's actually a success or not.
It sounds dangerous as hell to me, but there we go. There's the Domino's cars. No, that's the robots at ECU.
Yes,
they drive around delivering food. They're little like cars. How big? How tall are they?
And it's called the Grubhub app.
How tall are they, guys? Because looking at it compared to the Fountain, it looks like it's not very tall. Oh, it's about 3 foot tall.
It's not tall at all. Because I haven't seen one in person, but the pictures I've seen are not very big, and I don't know. It's strange, but I guess I've got to get used to the times. I'm an old dog, so this is a new trick, and I don't know. It caught me off guard. I've been meaning to talk about it on the show and forgot to. So that's my old age, I guess. But
yeah, there's another picture. Won't be able to put it on the screen, but you know, there's a student there at Jarvis Hall getting his food from the robot, and yeah, Kyle, it wasn't more than 2.5 to 3 feet tall.
I mean, literally, like, how do you know that you got the right kid, the right student? I don't know. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but
Bebop is your name, Tommy. Bebop.
There's going to be a few kids with the munchies late at night to tackle that thing and try to steal the pizza.
Yeah, no crap. The DoorDash and all that mess it's ridiculously high anyway. I was at the hospital the other day getting chemo, and I ordered some Jimmy John's, and like Jimmy John's is right by the hospital, Dave, you know that, and it was like $20 with delivery for one damn sandwich and a bag of chips.
It's a lot. Yeah, I know all about that, and that's why I try really hard not to order out like Uber Eats and all that, because it can get, you know, if you think places are expensive, then the ordering out is, if people do that like every day, I don't know how they can afford it.
Yeah, I don't either. And I'll tell you something else, since we got a comment here on the screen that's random, so I'll hold the fault. So go ahead with the comment.
No, Johnny Robertson, you know how he has the website autoblog.com. It talks about a train. It's an autonomous robot that gets crossing, I guess. I don't know, like, but yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. it's all kinds of stuff that could potentially happen. That's another thing where, again, I guess the train hits the robot at a crossing is what it's saying.
Okay, that's interesting.
Sorry. Anyway,
I was going to bring up, you talking about prices in Grubhub and DoorDash, and this is just a random thought. It relates somewhat to tailgating, though. Have y'all priced 12 packs of sodas recently? A damn 12 pack of Cokes the other day at Target was $7.19 for one 12 pack.
Yeah.
Kiss my ass. I mean, what in the world?
Yeah, it's crazy because there's some. I will say this: there are some companies, because I don't want to sound like we're anti-business. We'd love for you to sponsor our show, but there's some companies now that on purpose that have been saying, "Yeah, we know that really inflation is not like affecting us, but because inflation has happened over the last year, then they're like, yeah, we're going to go up on our prices." And I'm like, there's only so much you can go up, and then eventually people are going to be like, okay, we're not, like you said, Kyle, we're not going to buy it anymore.
Yeah, well, I told Jessica, I was like, Dollar General's got Pepsi products, 12 packs, 3 for $12, and Dr. Pepper products, 3 for $11. I said, we're just going to drink whatever we can get from there. Screw the Coke products.
There you go. And you should be drinking Pepsi anyway, right?
I guess they sponsor the Pirates, but
yeah. And speaking of which, thank you to the Minges family for their great donation. And guys,
well, they can sponsor the podcast, then I'll really go buy some Pepsi products.
There you go. We can make it happen. Matt's the sales guy, so he and I are gonna like team up, and I know all four of us can, but that's a whole nother show, as they say, or behind the scenes. But guys, before we go, certainly with let's talk about Pirates Unite, and we'll get out of here. I know a lot of people have been asking about how much is going on right now with there's so many families now stepping up, so many people stepping up. A record year last year for the Pirate Club. Congratulations to them. But how long do you think it's going to take to raise the money for the indoor practice facility? There are a lot of people that are saying that they were well on our way for the 20 mil for the indoor practice facility. Something we've been wanting for March 1st is 5 years. We've been talking about the indoor practice facility for 5 years, guys, on our show, and it'll be almost soon that we'll get it.
Until you're asking how soon, I mean, I have no idea. I don't know how much money we've raised, but I would hope by 2025 at the latest.
Well, the goal is, by the way, I want to tell you this: the goal that the Pirate Club has is to have all the money for the practice facility by the end of 23. So
let's do it.
Let's make it happen. And Bubba, that number is 252-737. Is it 4540 off the top of my head?
Yeah, that's correct.
Call
if you want to give me any money, my number is 252-521-4793.
No doubt. Hey guys, I forgot to thank you, Matt. Let's talk about Super Bowl predictions. But Super Bowl 57, Eagles, Chiefs. Who you got? Who do you have? And we'll get out of here.
I'll jump in. I mean, I just feel like the Eagles right now are a hot team. I mean, they curb stomped the Giants. They beat up on the 49ers. They just have a ton of momentum. I feel like, the Chiefs, they're not quite as explosive as they've been in the last few years. Mahomes is a little banged up. And when you get them out of Arrowhead, it's a different thing altogether. So I feel like this is the Eagles' year. It's a 1.5 point spread. I'm going heavy. And let me tell you guys, I hate Philadelphia. I hate the Eagles. No offense to DJ. I'm a Giants fan, but 1.5 point spread, I'm all over the Eagles. And I think they're going to cover it easily.
Well, so you think it's a blowout?
I think they'll win by at least 10.
Okay. All right. Kyle?
I mean, I know nothing about either team, honestly. I don't follow the NFL. Everybody's taking the Eagles, so I'll take the Chiefs just to be different.
Yeah, Matt, you and I'm a Commanders guy. I want to say the Eagles. I just have a weird, I don't know why, maybe because I love Patrick Mahomes. I love his style. I think you're right I think the Eagles is overall the better team. I think that DG stole my thunder with talking about the Eagles defense. Can they get to Mahomes? That was my biggest concern about the game. If you're a Chiefs fan, is not only the health of Mahomes, but that Eagles defense is way better than people are talking about. I'm going to pick the Chiefs on a hunch, even though I think the Eagles are the better team. And I won't be surprised if the Eagles win, but I just have one of those like really tight games and Mahomes pulls out the magic at the end kind of thing. I could be dead wrong, but I've been wrong a lot on this show and will be continue to be wrong, but I'm going with the Chiefs. Bubba, what about you?
I'll go with the Eagles. I'm kind of like Kyle. Maybe not quite as extreme as far as not following the NFL. I've watched it a little, but not really enough to know a whole lot about either of these teams besides how good they are. I just like Matt, for some of the reasons Matt was saying, I'll take Philly.
Isn't that funny? For those listening and for those watching on the left of the screen, those two guys, myself and Kyle, we pick the Chiefs. On the right side of the screen, that was not on purpose. Both of y'all picked the Eagles. That's funny.
It's a podcast divided.
You got to be able to it's the Super Bowl. You got to put some money down, on something, right? So if you don't like the point spread, maybe the over under, maybe some prop bets.
That's what I was going to say. Is there any prop bets that you guys would, if you could wager, nudge, nudge, wink, wink? Would you do any prop? I've never done that before. I just think it's fascinating to me. Like if there's going to be a safety, if there's going to be a touchdown before the first commercial break, they do all these kind of crazy.
Who's doing the halftime show?
It is. Hold on. Rihanna.
Okay. Over-unders at the halftime show sucks ass. I do know Chris Stapleton singing the national anthem. That's pretty cool. But
yeah.
Can we ever get anybody besides God Almighty? Can we get a rock band or some country artist? Is it always got to be a hip hop act going to the damn Super Bowl halftime show? I mean, for God's sake.
Well, what happened is they did this run of where after the whole wardrobe malfunction, they did a whole bunch of rock stars, and then they stopped doing it, and then they've gone back to the MTV kind of thing. I think there'll be a trend where they'll go back again to where they do that. And I've even heard guys that the artist pays the NFL to do the show if they have like a big concert, like tour coming up.
I just don't see anybody getting excited about Rihanna. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but do you guys know any big Rihanna fans? I don't. Matt, is your daughter, son, big Rihanna fans?
No, I won't watch a single second of it, to be honest. I'll switch over.
Well, I might watch it. She's attractive. She's not bad to look at, but I'll mute it.
I'll go over to the Puppy Bowl on A&E for a half hour. I have no interest in Rihanna.
Yeah, I don't music. I might mute it, but I don't. I mean, look at her, but that's fine. But nah, Stapleton doing the national anthem is pretty cool though. Chris did.
I love that.
Yeah, great voice.
No doubt. We'll have to maybe next year. It's like wait until next year. Like my favorite teams, they can win. We'll have maybe a better Super Bowl halftime for sure. Do you guys have anything before we go and get out of here? Bubba, do you have anything?
No, I guess this weekend Pirates return to action in basketball, and very challenging game as Matt and I were discussing this afternoon briefly about the Green Wave down in New Orleans, and they're coming off a 101-94 win in overtime against Cincinnati.
Yep, that's going to be a real tough one. By the way, got to give a shout out to our friend Kim McNeil, 16-8 guys for the women this year. I'm a huge fan. I know personally that her trainer, but Maya Joyner, her trainer actually trains my son and daughter too. A local guy here, Kyle, from Williamston. Nice. But she has been awesome. She has been awesome. And if she doesn't win Freshman of the Year for the American, something is wrong, because she's won it, Bubba, like 3 or 4 times? At least 3 times for Freshman of the Week.
At least, and I think I'm trying to remember how many double-doubles. I want to say won at least 8 or 9 double-doubles now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. The only thing that part of her game is I told her trainer if she could make some foul shots, she would have like 25 or 30 every game. Like, she gets fouled so much. It's like fouling her free throw percentage, not to pick on her, is like 48, or was a couple weeks ago, like 48%. Something like that. But anyway.
Hey, guys, real fast. I didn't mean to get on camera. Jesus Christ, my reading glasses on.
Oh, so
he's all looking close.
He's trying to go like Harold Robinson.
Yeah, Jenny Russell's on there. But I was going to ask favorite Super Bowl food. How long was I on camera? Good God.
Like 10 seconds.
Okay, well.
A little cameo.
Well, part of my face.
I had you for at least 2 or 3 minutes. I mean,
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's horrible. Favorite Super Bowl food, guys?
I gotta get my wings. I'm gonna be boring, but I love wings, more wings.
mozzarella sticks, mozzarella, fellas.
I love those.
Mozzarella.
Can't go wrong with some mozzarella sticks.
No, those. All the above. What do you like, Kyle?
I'm a big wing guy like you. Also pizza wings. And if I have the opportunity, which this year is going to be pizza and wings, but also can kill some ribs.
Hot Wings, Brandon says, one of our listeners and viewers on YouTube.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with buffalo wings.
No,
Y'all like flats or drums?
drums for me, but I mean I can eat both. It doesn't matter. But hey, Bubba, what do you like to eat for the Super Bowl?
In addition to wings, meatballs,
A good choice.
like a cheese ball. Let's see.
What
About
about
like the cheese ball, like with the crackers, dipping it in there?
Yeah,
like a party tray?
like green pepper and pineapple and chopped pecans. Sorry, pecans.
On
Kyle.
the cheese ball, you mean? Okay, got you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Would be good. But we'll have that'll be fun. We can, I guess, talk next week about maybe your favorite food and favorite TV commercial for the Super Bowl. Do you have one, guys? Real quick. I know we're running long. Sorry, Bubba.
Of all time?
Yeah, do you have one off the top of your head?
Maybe the Pepsi commercial with what's her name from back in with the little boy, and she was the model that was really popular back in the day.
Oh, Cindy Crawford.
Cindy Crawford, yeah, the Cindy Crawford Pepsi commercial probably would be one that I remember from my childhood for certain reasons.
Go ahead, Matt.
What reasons would those be, Kyle?
Well, kind of made me grow a little bit at that time.
Well, ironically enough, mine was the Dorito commercial with the I cannot remember her name for the life of me, but it was very similar to the Pepsi one. There was a gorgeous model on the
Britney
Dorito
Spears.
It was a
She did a lot of Pepsi commercials. That's her. No, you said Dorito. I'm still on Pepsi.
yeah. This was.
I don't remember. What year was this, Matt?
Whew, man, the years. It's got to be 10, somewhere between 10 and 15 years now. It's going back a little.
I don't remember that. The Dorito commercial I remember with the Super Bowl was more recent with the time machine.
Crazy, yeah. They have more off the chart kind of stuff now. My favorite is iconic 1979.
Mean Joe Green.
Yeah, that was the first Super Bowl I remember, and then it's like a little kid. That kid was like my age. So I mean, I just
Coke commercial, right?
It was a Coke commercial where he actually tosses the jersey to the kid, and you're a little kid, and you see the Steelers back then, as you guys know, was like a dynasty with Terry Bradshaw and got rest in peace Franco Harris. But even though I was not a Steelers fan, they were huge back then, and so that commercial was at the time, you knew it was iconic. Even as a little boy, it was just like the wow factor was a 10. How about you, Bubba? Favorite Super Bowl?
Trying to unmute myself. I stepped away for a moment, but a few different ones come to mind. Some of the ones you guys have already mentioned. I would also say the Budweiser commercial with the frogs and
Budweiser.
That is a good one. That was a good one. How about what's up?
How about you not getting my Bud Light, Johnny?
That one came to mind. I wasn't sure if that was a Super Bowl commercial or not. If it was a Super Bowl, okay. That would probably be number one then. But in addition to that, I would say Jordan and Bird playing horse. Just because I was a big Larry Bird fan, that was one. Yeah, McDonald's commercial.
That was I forgot about that one. Man, that was a good one.
Hey, here's one for you.
I'll play you for a Big Mac, right? Isn't that what it was?
Yeah, off the wall. Where they were doing crazy shots.
Yeah, I remember that now.
How about Terry Tate, office linebacker? You remember that one?
Not off the top of my head. What was the commercial for?
Terry Tate, office linebacker. It was.
Yeah, I remember it, Matt. I'm vaguely. I had forgotten about it until you brought it up, but I'm trying to. I'm gonna have to look it up on YouTube now. But I definitely remember the.
Yeah, you have to check it out. I mean, so it was a huge guy, like in an office setting with a shirt and tie, and they call him office linebacker because when somebody aggravates him, he just absolutely lays them out, like right in the office. Like I'm
I wonder
talking.
why you would, Matt. I wonder why you would like that one.
But it's a good one. I'll send it to you guys. After this.
For those that don't know, Matt was a linebacker. That's why. That's why I said that. All right, guys. Thank you so much. It's been fun. It's been real. I'll tell you what. We haven't done a show together. We did the show on Saturday with Mike Rooney. We missed you, Semenza. That was a lot of fun. Hey, it's only a week away for college baseball for ECU. That's why I have the background for those listening. You don't see it, but it's there in the jungle. Thanks to Bubba. Appreciate that picture very much. And good luck to the Pirates. It's going to be a great season for baseball. Just pray to God no injuries or very limited injuries, and I think we can go far. And we'll see how that goes. But we got a lot of great guests, by the way, coming up too, right, Bubba? And I want to give a shout out to future programming. We've got, I know we'll have extra innings here pretty soon, Bubba, in a few days, right?
Yeah, we'll have that probably. Well, obviously not
Early
Sunday
next
night, but this week it will be maybe Monday or Tuesday. But trying to get the George Washington head coach, Coach Ritchie, on to talk about the Colonials, aka Hippos, to be, and then
Hippos in waiting.
Yeah, Hippos in waiting, and we'll also have head track and field coach Kurt Kraft on. Some Pirates doing some good things, I believe, up in Blacksburg at a meet against Virginia Tech and others. And then also Coach Connors, he's been knocking it out of the park with some of these former Pirates he's been having on. Obviously, their archived interviews with Coach Logan, E-Mac, Junior Smith, Jeff Carr, as well as his wife, Misty Horn Carr, who played basketball for the Pirates, but then Terrell Williams, Rod Coleman, and this coming Monday, Vontae Leach. So just go to our YouTube channel and be sure to subscribe. And when you do, you'll be able to see our playlist for Absolute Empowerment with Coach Jeff Connors, and all of these interviews, as well as more that I just referenced, are easily accessible.
Yeah, I wonder if somebody would like to tell Jeff Connors he's putting out useless content.
Who would say that? By the way, they voted down Hippos on January 24th. Johnny Robertson. Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. They're going to say the Colonials. We've been giving
no longer Hippos in waiting.
No.
Okay, so no Hippos in waiting.
Johnny Robinson knows way too much about this situation. He's the one that told us, I believe, the story about the hippo on campus, and he now knows it's been voted down. So, why is he so up on George Washington athletics? What is
now, Johnny?
He's from Virginia.
Are they going to remain the Colonials, or what other nickname in waiting? Do they have any other options that were on the table?
They're going to be the Toucans.
Oh, they want something with more of a positive image. Oh my God! Okay.
A positive image. Then what's negative about a freaking hippo?
I don't know.
Johnny's a wealth of information.
What do they mean a positive image? What the?
He plays softball in D.C.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Well, cool. I guess.
Are you a politician, Johnny?
What do they want to be? The George Washington smiley faces?
I don't know.
They can be the George. They can be the George Washington pronouns.
Oh well, here we go. Yeah, let's get out of here before getting more in trouble for sure. That's another debate for another time, guys. Thank you so much, Matt. Looking forward to having you down soon. It won't be too long for the spring game and see some baseball and hanging out. And we're going that, so we'll do that in April. You can just go to ecpirates.com to find out about the spring game, and that's going to be at 11 a.m., by the way, guys, that late morning. Oh. And I'm sure we'll be tailgating and having a good time, so it sounds like fun. All right, we'll get out of here. Thanks to all our great sponsors. We'll talk about that too. PGXgloves.com. We appreciate them. Thanks to Kevin Walker. Appreciate Kevin for the support of the program too. And I know that he's done a lot of great work. And I'll tell you what, if I was going to win the Powerball there, Kevin, but I didn't make it, that $700 million, I was going to go give you a call. LNK Custom Homes, give him a call at 336-688-8461. And we appreciate KK's support of the program for the last couple of seasons. He's been the man. So appreciate you, Kevin. And then pgxgloves.com. Hey, Kyle, I know a lot of people want to get those custom baseball gloves. Baseball season is right around the corner. A lot of stuff there, right?
Yeah, you can get your custom baseball gloves for your kids. They're playing Little League ball, maybe softball gloves. Maybe you need some custom gloves for the golf course. Maybe you want to be like Michael Jackson, want one custom-made glove that's bejeweled so you can moonwalk across the golf course. But for whatever you need, they'll hook you up at pgxgloves.com. Just put in promo code ECU at checkout, and you save yourself 25%.
All right. Appreciate Kaz. I need to get up with you, Kaz, about my kids. They're going to be playing baseball and softball coming up in April, so late March and April. So look forward to that. All right. Appreciate everybody. Look forward to baseball season we talked about and Super Bowl 57. Hopefully everybody has a safe holiday weekend. I think the Super Bowl is a holiday, so it might as well be the most watched television program of the year for sure. We'll get out of here. Thank you so much for watching The Sports Objective and listening to The Sports Objective. Good night, everybody. And as always, go Pirates.
I'm a pirate down to my soul, and I don't back down, not at all. Find out when the cannons explode, from the sidelines down to the post. Put it down like not even close. All out till the last whistle blow. For the flag with the soul and crossbones. Everybody stand up, get your hands up. Let the team know that we got they back. This is our house, this is our town, our time. Record 19, copy that. Everybody in the stands go bananas, scream loud, baby, don't hold back. Every foot, every yard, every first down, every touchdown with the cannons blast. Get it on, get it all, get the wave going like a